Hello, my creative friends. I'm Heather North from heatherscreativeblessings.com. I have a technique piece to share with you today. Today there's a challenge, new challenge up at Stamp Nation. It's a corner focus. So we were supposed to focus on the corners of our card. And I started with this panel and ended up making 3 different cards with it. So this isn't the one for the challenge. You have to go over there to see it. But I wanted to share with you some of the things I did for this card. So I started out with a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch basil cardstock. It holds the water really well. This piece is bent, but I'll probably end up cutting this particular one down into a tag, so it'll be okay. I'm going to use my Misti, and I'm just lining it up in the corner. It's really simple when you go all the way to the left and all the way to the bottom. That way, if your paper does move or slide, you can get it right into position very easily. The Misti makes it super easy if you want to make multiple cards, like I have done here. But also with this particular technique, because I'm going to end up stamping over it 2, maybe 3 times, the Misti is a great thing to use. So with this particular stamp set, there was kind of a little opening off to the left. That's where I placed it on purpose because I want to have the sentiment go there, and I didn't want it to overlap the flowers too much. As you saw, I positioned the stamp where I wanted it to go and then close the lid, and the stamp sticks to the lid of the Misti. Now I'm going to take some distress markers. I have here worn lipstick and I think picked raspberries. In my first one, the original card I showed you, I actually started with a soft yellow in the center and then did worn lipstick on the outside. I'm changing up the colors just a little bit to brighten it with this particular card. So then I took, you can see that darker color, I just barely added some fine lines of that darker picked raspberry. And now I'm coming in on the leaves, and they've got little circles. It could be berries or buds. I have shabby shutters. And in the original, I also used some crushed olive, but here again I'm brightening it up. So I'm adding in some mowed lawn as kind of vines on some of those leaves. Then I decided to add just a little bit of pink to these little circles. It's hard to see the stamp from here, but I wanted the pink to kind of flow through. Then I spritzed it a couple of times just with some water, and then I'm going to close it down to stamp and press. And I hold it for just a second so that it kind of places the image, and there you see. Isn't that gorgeous? If you want a little more definition, you can come in with the darker colors and just add a little more color and either spritz or not. In this case, I really like how defined it was. So I just pressed down without adding any more water. To clean my stamp, I'm just using a damp chamois. It's actually used to dry off cars, but this one is dedicated just to my stamp room. If you wanted a little more of the watercolor look like I have in the original card, all I did there was I sprayed it another time and then stamped down with the water, and that got it really flowing and moving. You could also take a damp paintbrush and do the same thing. Distress inks just work and react really well with water. So if you want a more loose look, add more water. These are actually my Mother's Day cards I'm sending this year, and I wanted to give it a vintage look. So I wanted to add a really fine splatter. What I did was I just used my clear block and I scribbled my lighter color first, that worn lipstick, and then just added just a little bit of picked raspberry. Then I dipped a clean paintbrush into some water, picked up some of that ink, tap the paintbrush onto my finger, and you see it gives just a really fine splatter. I can clean my clear block off with that same chamois. And now I'm going to do the same thing with my greens. Just start with the lighter color, laying it down, add in some of the darker, pick it up, and tap away. The color came out really dark, so I'm just going to put some more of the lighter color off to the side and just add that. You could also add in a little bit of pink here. I did that with some of my projects. With some of my panels, I also added some gold shimmer spritz and I tapped it off. You can spray those mists, but they can get pretty strong. So if you want more control, I suggest this method. And play around with how much water you add, how high up you go, and how low you go. All of those things will make a difference. There's a little peek at the card that's coming tomorrow. Now for the gold strip. I used a Princess Gold embossing powder by Ranger to stamp my sentiment on this card. And I wanted to add some gold strips to the side. You could just use paper, but since I already had some gold embossing on there, I really wanted it to match. So what I'm doing is just taking a piece of white cardstock and I'm stamping my Versamark ink pad onto that cardstock. Then I will sprinkle my embossing powder over the cardstock and heat set it using my heat tool. If you find that you missed a few spots, you can just take the Versamark ink pad again, sprinkle some more of the embossing powder on it, and set it a second time. Once it was cool, I just cut down those strips into 1/2-inch pieces and added them to the sides of my panel, and that completes my first card. I will have the second card inspired by this same panel up on my blog tomorrow. You saw a sneak peek in the video. And I also have a sneak peek of the card for the Stamp Nation Challenge along with some links and product supplies. If you like this video, I hope that you will give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more from me. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you find some time to get creative. Bye!